Hey there, I'm Molly, and you're listening to the It's All Connected podcast, where we talk about life, business, finances, travel, health, spirituality, and how it's all connected. This podcast is for you if you want real and relatable content that makes you feel like you're having coffee or drinks with a friend. You ready? Let's dive in. Hi, friends. Okay, so if you've ever tried doing something, or maybe you've tried doing something several times and it hasn't worked out, and then you start thinking like, okay, is this actually for me? Should I keep doing this? Or am I just wasting my time here and move on to something else? Because maybe you're tired of doing the same thing over and over again, right? Or maybe you feel like, okay, everyone else seems to be doing this well, but why can't I? If you've ever had thoughts like that, you're definitely not alone because I felt that way about business and travel for the past year, or I would even say 2 years. But recently, I realized that actually, no, both of these things are very much for me. I do enjoy doing them. I was just forcing things to fit a certain way. Like I was trying to fit a circle into a rectangle, or like a rectangle into a circle. And it just wasn't working out for me. And it wasn't until I stopped forcing these things that I could see the other doors open to me. And so this is what this is what this podcast episode is going to be about. It's about giving yourself permission to try again, and also giving yourself permission to do things differently, because how often are we told that we have to do things different, like not different. How often are we told to do things a certain way, right? Like, for example, going to school, getting a good job, getting a house, getting a car. I think the car, yeah, getting the car comes from first, and then the car, and then the family, and all of these things. And then that's the order you're supposed to go in, right? And that has just never worked out for me. I know friends that, love all of those things, and I love that for them, but it's about figuring out like what works for you. And I've finally like realized or accepted that even the entrepreneurial journey that I was on was not for me. It was not sustainable. It was not something that I enjoyed anymore. And I kept trying to, you know, make it fit. I was like, this is what I've been taught. This is what I've seen work for other people. This has worked for me in the past. And so I kept trying to like make it fit. And I remember when I was going to therapy and I kept going back to the same conversation. I was like, no, I know this works. And yes, it might have worked, but would it have made me happy? I don't think so. And what I've realized, so if you don't know, I'm currently recording this in Malaysia, and hopefully I launch this podcast soon, because I've been saying that this podcast is going to come out soon for, I think, a month and a half now. And I just need to do it. But my time in Malaysia has helped me so much, because it's helped me realize that there are other ways to do things. And I needed to let go of what I was trying to force so I can allow like new ways and opportunities and perspectives to come in. Because when you're so focused on making things go a certain way, you can't see like the other avenues available to you, right? And if things didn't work out for you the way that you thought they would, that's okay. One thing that I like to ask myself is like, okay, what did I learn from this experience? How can I apply these lessons to, you know, whatever I'm going into next? And when I first thought about like rebuilding my business, I was kind of scared and discouraged, because it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. It took me forever the first time. And what I realized on my recent island trip was like, no, it doesn't have to go the way that it did the first time. It doesn't have to be anything like that, because I've learned so much in my years of online business, and I've learned so much about not only business but also myself, and what I like to do and what I don't like to do, and how I like my days to be structured or unstructured, and the life that I want to build. And all of those things that I've gone through in the past weren't failures, or they weren't like things, they actually weren't things that didn't work out. In fact, they they showed me so much of who I am and what brings me joy and how I like to function and do things. And so they weren't time wasted, but lessons learned. And I think the way that you see things affects a lot of, your mood and your energy and your actions and behaviors and all of those things. Because if you're always thinking negatively about, your past or how you didn't do things right, then that's the energy that you're going to carry. And I think that's the energy that I was carrying for such a long time until it became like the only energy I knew. And coming to Malaysia, I knew I had to just do a reset. I wanted to shift my perspective. I wanted to change the way that I had been thinking about everything, like my life, myself, my business, traveling, etc. And being in therapy, I knew that I was being like way too hard on myself because every session I felt like my therapist was reminding me to be more kind and patient and compassionate with myself. Because growing up, I was always criticized and I was told that I couldn't really do anything right. And so often, as a result, I would just not do anything because in my mind, I was like, well, what's the point of doing this if it's not going to be good enough anyway? And I saw how the experiences I went through when I was younger carried on to my later life or, my teens and then young adulthood and then like mid 20s, etc. And it showed up in so many areas of my life. And so I think that was the mindset I had when my business started to crumble. I'm getting like very open and honest here. But yeah, when it started to crumble, I was like, well, what's the point if it's already crumbling? Because at first I tried saving it. I did so many things to try and fix it. And again, it goes to that forcing, like I was forcing myself to do so many things that I didn't really want to do. And my recent like island trip made me realize, oh, if I actually give myself the time to build the business that I want in the way that I want, like it might not make the most sense. Like it might not be the fastest way or the most efficient way, but I think it will be the way that brings me the most joy. I will enjoy the process more because I feel like there's this urgency to be the fastest or do things the quickest. And I've done that. And it's worked out in the past, but I was also really stressed. I was constantly hitting burnout. Like I was in a burnout cycle and I was going through like roller coasters of the highs were high and then the lows were really low. And I think that eventually led me to the past 2 years of uncovering everything, like doing the healing work and learning to be more patient, compassionate with myself, and all of these things. So I'm giving myself permission to rebuild business and also podcasting again because I've tried podcasting before and I paused like twice. And this time I was like, how everyone tells you to have a niche? And I've probably said that before myself too. But this time I don't really know if I want to have a niche yet. I want to figure out, okay, what do I actually want to build? What do I actually want to talk about? Because to be completely honest, I don't know yet. And that's what I want this podcast to be a reflection of, that it's okay to not know all the answers and figure it out along the way. I've always said that you're going to figure it out along the way, and that's the best way to figure things out, by doing things, because you can think about things all day long, right? That doesn't mean that you'll actually have an answer by the end of the day. If anything, I feel like my thinking has led to overthinking, which has led to like inaction. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this podcast. I'm going to figure it out along the way. And I'm also going to hopefully show other people that they can figure out along the way and they don't have to have all the answers. Cause I know firsthand how tempting it is to feel like you have to have all the answers and have it all figured out. and be absolutely perfect. And I don't think that you'll ever actually feel perfect, because I've never felt like I did things perfectly, and I've done a lot of things. So if there's something that you want to do or something that you've done in the past, whether, it's starting a business or picking up a hobby like hiking, dancing, taking cooking classes, whatever it is, and it fell off for whatever reason, whether it was, doubt of, can I actually do this, or lack of time, feeling like you didn't have enough time or it wasn't a priority, or fear, whatever it is, I want to encourage you to try again. And it's okay to go at a different pace than other people. Like, it's okay to do things slowly. You don't have to go from 0 to 100. And I know that with like Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all of these things that, have content around how they did things in 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever short time frame it is. I've also seen in my years people who took their time, and I saw them grew over the years and they're still doing it. And I'm like, that's the way. I mean, there's many ways, right? But that's the way I'm doing things now. I want to stick with this for a long, long time. Like, I want to have this podcast 10 years from now. I felt a little nervous saying that, but I do. I want to have this podcast 10 years from now. I want to be documenting my life. I want to be sharing my story. I want to invite other people onto this podcast to share their story. And while, yes, I want this podcast to grow, I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I'm okay if things take time. Like, what's the rush? Like, really, what's the rush? When I think about it, the rush happens when I see other people rushing, or I feel the pressure to rush myself. But when I think about what it is that I want and what I'm actually happy with, I'm happy with something that's sustainable, something that I can keep up with, something that isn't going to burn me out because I tried going way too fast. And so, what I've learned is that speed actually doesn't matter if you're always burning yourself out, if you're always stressed out. Sure, it may look impressive on the outside, but how does it feel on the inside? Like, what's the cost of, you know, stressing? Like, what's the cost of trying to go fast? Is the cost your well-being? Is the cost your sanity, your peace? And maybe it's a change in environment for me. Maybe it's me getting older. I don't know, but it's just not the price that I'm willing to pay anymore. So for me, I am giving myself the permission to try again and to do things more slowly this time, to actually take my time, because I want this podcast to still be here in 5, 10, 20 years. And I want to be able to listen back on this podcast episode and be happy that I didn't give up. So, whatever it is that you are thinking about doing, I hope that you don't give up either, that you try again and you try things in a different way. If things didn't work out for you last time, look at why and see if there are any other ways that you can do things. So, if you've enjoyed this podcast episode today, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a DM on Instagram at Molly Costudio, and I will see you in the next podcast episode. Okay, bye.